Maybe you have started doing it without even noticing. You stop answering some messages. You turn down invitations. You spend more time alone. When someone asks how you are, you say you are fine, because explaining yourself feels harder than staying quiet. At first, it feels good. There is less noise, less pressure, fewer people asking things from you. You do not have to deal with drama, disappointment, or awkward moments. Your days feel calmer when nobody gets too close, and slowly that calm can become a wall. You may tell yourself that you simply like your own company. Maybe that is true. There is nothing wrong with needing quiet. There is nothing wrong with enjoying time alone. But there is a small difference worth noticing. Do you choose distance because you feel peaceful alone? Or do you need distance because being close to people no longer feels safe? Those two things can look almost the same from the outside. Person can sit alone in a quiet room and feel completely free. Another person can sit in the same room and feel protected. The room is the same, the feeling is not. Sometimes we begin to avoid people because closeness has started to feel expensive. It may bring stress. It may bring disappointment. It may bring the fear of being misunderstood, rejected, controlled, or hurt. So we create space, then more space. We stop sharing as much. We stop asking for help. We stop expecting much from anyone. And after a while, we may forget that this distance was built for a reason. It starts to feel like who we are. This is where something in Taoist wisdom becomes quietly important. When we try too hard to control life, we can create a new kind of struggle. We build rules to keep pain away. We build walls to keep uncertainty outside, but a wall that keeps pain out can also keep life out. The strange part is that the more we depend on distance to feel safe, the harder closeness can become. And then we face a question that is much deeper than whether we like being alone. Are you keeping your distance because you truly want to? Or because, somewhere along the way, distance became the only place where you felt in control? Because if that choice is no longer a choice, then what looked like freedom may be something else entirely. There is a strange comfort in keeping people at a distance. You know what to expect when you are alone. No difficult talks, no awkward silence, no one asking too much from you, no one getting close enough to see the parts of you that you would rather keep hidden. For a while, that can feel like peace. And maybe it is. There is nothing wrong with solitude. Being alone can give you space to think. It can help you rest. It can bring you back to yourself. The problem begins when being alone is no longer something you choose. It becomes something you need. You may still want friendship. You may still want someone who understands you. You may even wish for a deeper connection, but when someone starts getting close, something inside you pulls back. You find a reason not to answer. You become quiet. You tell yourself you are better off alone, and the strange thing is, this can feel like strength. If nobody gets close, nobody can disappoint you. If nobody knows the real you, nobody can judge you. If you never depend on anyone, nobody can leave you feeling helpless. So the wall seems to protect you. But a wall has no way to choose what stays outside. It keeps pain out. But it can also keep love out. It blocks rejection, but it can also block friendship. It protects you from being hurt, but it may also protect you from being known. And slowly, the habit becomes stronger. The less you talk to people, the harder talking feels. The less you share, the more dangerous sharing seems. The more time you spend alone, the more unfamiliar closeness becomes. Then one day, you may look around and realize that solitude does not simply give you peace anymore. It gives you safety because nothing can reach you there. This is where the Tao offers a different way of seeing things. A healthy boundary can move. It can open when life calls for openness and close when rest is needed. But resistance cannot move. It must always say no. And when protection becomes rigid, it stops serving life. So the question becomes more personal. Are you protecting your peace? Or have you slowly built an identity around never needing anyone? Because sometimes the hardest wall to notice is the one that feels like home. Once distance becomes a habit, something deeper can happen. You may start to believe that the safest life is the life you can control. So you control who gets close. You control what you share. You control how much you need from others. You avoid people who bring too much emotion or uncertainty. At first, this seems reasonable. If people can hurt you, why not stay away? If relationships can end, why become attached? If trusting someone can lead to disappointment, why take the risk? The mind can make this sound like wisdom, but slowly the need for safety can grow. You avoid one difficult person. Then you avoid difficult conversations. You stop asking for help because needing someone feels dangerous. You stop expecting much from people because low expectations seem easier to live with. And without noticing, you begin building your whole life around one goal. Nothing must disturb you. That sounds like peace, but it may not be peace. It may be control. Peace says, whatever happens, I can meet it. Control says, nothing must happen that I cannot handle. There is a big difference, because life will always contain things you cannot control. People change. Plans fail. Someone may misunderstand you. Someone you trust may disappoint you. Someone may leave. No wall can stop all of that. And when we spend our lives trying to avoid every possible hurt, we may become less able to face even small discomfort. We become careful with everything, careful with people, careful with feelings, careful with trust, careful with life itself. This is where the Tao points toward something very different. It does not teach us to give up and let everything happen without care. It teaches us not to become stiff inside. A tree that cannot bend will break in a strong wind. The tree does not fight the wind. It moves with it. There is a quiet strength in that. The same can be true for us. You do not need to welcome every person into your life. You do not need to accept every situation. Boundaries still matter, but if your whole life is built around never being hurt, then fear is making your choices for you, and that is the part worth noticing. Maybe the strongest boundary you have is not protecting your freedom anymore. Maybe it is limiting your ability to respond, connect, trust, and change, because when you try to control everything that can hurt you, you may also begin controlling everything that could reach you, and eventually, the question is no longer why you keep people away. It is why being in control has become so important in the first place. Maybe you have been looking at all of this and thinking, so I have to become more social now. No, that is not the lesson. You do not need to become the person who talks to everyone. You do not need to fill your life with people. You do not need to say yes to every invitation just to prove that you are open. Some people truly need more time alone. Some relationships should stay at a distance. Some people are not good for your peace. Knowing when to step away can be wisdom. The real question is not how much distance you keep. The real question is why you keep it. There is a big difference between saying, I enjoy being alone, and saying, I cannot let anyone get close. One comes from choice, the other may come from fear. From the outside, they can look exactly the same. A quiet person may be deeply free. They may enjoy their own space and still welcome people when the right connection appears, but someone else may also sit alone in the same quiet room, not because they love solitude, but because they are afraid of what might happen if they open the door. The Tao does not ask you to fight your nature. It does not tell you to become louder, more outgoing, or more dependent. It points towards something much simpler. Be flexible. If you need space, take it. If someone deserves a boundary, set one. If a moment calls for connection, do not close yourself just because closeness feels unfamiliar. This is what makes freedom different. From a fixed habit, freedom means you can move, you can step closer, you can step back, you can be alone without feeling empty, you can be with someone without feeling that you have lost yourself. The goal is not to choose people over solitude. It is not to choose solitude over people. The goal is to stop being controlled by either one. That is a much deeper kind of peace, because when you no longer have to hide from connection, you can finally choose it for the right reason. Not because you are afraid of being alone, not because you are afraid of being close, but because in that moment, being open feels natural, and that raises the next question. What would it actually look like to let someone come closer without giving away the part of yourself you worked so hard to protect? There is a quiet moment when someone reaches out to you, and your first feeling is not joy. It is caution. You wonder what they want. You think about what could go wrong. You feel the old need to step back before anything becomes too real. But maybe the answer is not to open every door, and maybe it is not to close every door either. There is a middle place. You can let someone come closer without giving them control over your life. You can care about someone without losing yourself. You can listen without agreeing with everything they say. You can share something real without knowing how the other person will respond. That last part is hard because the mind wants a promise before it takes a risk. It wants to know that you will not be hurt, that you will not be misunderstood, that the person will stay, but life cannot give that promise. Real connection always carries some unknown. This is where Taoist wisdom becomes very practical. A tree does not survive because it is hard. It survives because it can move when the wind comes. What bends can keep standing when what is rigid may break. The same can be true inside us. Being open does not mean having no boundaries. It means your boundaries can move when life asks them to. You can say no. You can leave. You can protect your peace. But you can also stay, listen, care, and allow someone to surprise you. That is a different kind of strength. You are no longer trying to control every feeling before it arrives. You are learning to meet life as it comes, and maybe that is what courage looks like here. Not trusting everyone, not becoming dependent, not forcing yourself to be more social, simply allowing a little space for another person to exist beside you without needing to know exactly how the story will end, because the deepest freedom may not be choosing distance or closeness. It may be becoming free enough to choose either. And that freedom begins when you stop asking life to give you certainty. Before you are willing to live, you can spend years trying to make sure nothing can hurt you. You keep people at a safe distance. You avoid hard talks. You do not ask for much. You learn to depend only on yourself. For a while it works. Then one day you notice something strange. The walls did not remove uncertainty. They only made your world smaller, because no one can promise you how a relationship will end. No one can promise they will never change. No one can promise you will never be misunderstood, rejected, or hurt. And distance cannot promise those things either. Life can still change while you are alone. People can leave. Plans can fail. Things can happen that you never saw coming. So the deeper question is not, how can I make sure nothing hurts me? It is, can I face what happens without losing myself? This is where the old Taoist idea of moving with life becomes real. A river does not know where every stone will fall. It does not stop flowing because the path may change. It meets the shape of the land, bends around what stands in front of it, and keeps moving. There is strength in that, not the strength of control. The strength of being able to respond. You do not need to know that someone will stay before you care about them. You do not need a guarantee before you open your heart a little. You do not need to control every outcome before you take the next step. This does not mean becoming careless. It means becoming less afraid of change. You can still have boundaries. You can still walk away. You can still choose solitude when it is right for you, but you no longer need a wall around your whole life just to feel safe. Something inside begins to loosen. You realize that freedom was never the power to control who enters your life or what they do once they arrive. Freedom is knowing that whatever comes, you can meet it. You can bend without breaking. You can lose something without losing yourself. And once that becomes possible, the old walls begin to look different. They are no longer the only place where you can feel safe. And beyond them, a much larger life may be waiting. Maybe you know the feeling by now. You enjoy being alone. You feel calm when no one asks anything from you. Your space feels safe. Your silence feels clean, and yet sometimes you notice a small ache. You miss being understood. You miss laughing with someone. You miss sharing a thought without having to explain every part of it. This does not mean something is wrong with you. You were never meant to choose between solitude and connection. Solitude can give you space to breathe. Connection can remind you that life is not meant to be carried alone. One is not always better than the other. The real problem begins when fear starts making the choice for you. Maybe you walk away because someone truly is not good for you. That can be wisdom. Maybe you stay away because closeness feels dangerous, even when the person has done nothing wrong. That may be something deeper. The difference is small on the outside, but huge inside. One comes from clarity, the other comes from fear, and this is where keeping your distance takes on a new meaning. Distance itself was never the enemy. A quiet life is not a failure. Boundaries are not cold. Needing time alone does not mean you are broken. The danger is becoming so used to the wall that you forget you built it. Then the wall stops protecting your peace. It starts deciding your life. Taoist wisdom points towards something simpler. Do not force yourself to become someone else. Do not force closeness. Do not force distance. Stay flexible. Let life move. There will be people you should leave behind. There will be people you may want to let closer. There will be days when silence is exactly what you need, and days when another person's presence brings warmth back into your world. You do not need to turn any of these choices into an identity. You only need the freedom to choose. So, perhaps the question is not whether you should keep your distance. Perhaps it is whether you are still free to lower the distance when life gives you a reason. Because the deepest freedom is not living behind an open door or a closed one. It is knowing that you can choose, and maybe, for the first time, you can leave the door unlocked. Not because you are no longer afraid, but because fear no longer gets to decide who you become.